So what books have you read that tend to really stand out? Maybe not, they're not necessarily your favorites, but they would be the kind of book that you would recommend somebody else to read. Let me name 5 books that I think are worth a read from my perspective. The first one that comes to my mind is Les Miserables by Victor Hugo. Now, this novel actually surprised me as to how captivating and good it was. I guess I was familiar with the musical and I think the movie, but as they say, the book is way better than the movie. I remember there were a lot of political type rants almost, it seemed like, in the text that I didn't understand, and so perhaps it might just be just as well to get an abridged copy of it. But of course, maybe I just was missing something. The second book is The Autobiography of a Hunted Priest. This was, in my mind, a fascinating read. It spoke about this priest, Father John Gerard, who actually wrote the book because it's an autobiography, about his experiences of how he had escaped England during the time of the persecution, during the Elizabethan persecution, where Catholics were forced to go underground or to not practice their faith. And so he went to be trained as a priest in Europe, came back as like a hawker, so he landed on the shore, so he's disguised as a hawker, and then he began to visit place to place, and then he was eventually caught by the authorities. Many times they searched for him and he was hidden in like behind a mantle of a fireplace or whatever, but he was eventually captured. He was brought to the tower and actually escaped from the tower because, of course, it's an autobiography, so he lived to tell about it. But just really a fascinating kind of experience of what that would have been like during the persecution time in England. Another book to call to mind would be Brave New World by Huxley, this English novelist. It's very thought-provoking. It's a bit like 1984, if you're familiar with that book, but controlled not so much by government oversight, but much more by pleasure. It may be a bit mature in its content, but my memory is that handles those things fairly well. We might think of, when we think of anyway 1984, we could think of modern day China, but after reading this book, you will likely see a lot of connection to our hedonistic world, meaning our world that is very much seeking pleasure. Evidently, Huxley was partly inspired after visiting the United States and witnessing the more morally loose roaring 20s, and wrote this novel to explain, kind of predict where things are going, and it's very insightful. I can't leave out all of the Russian novels, so I'll name one of them, War and Peace. I think I read this mostly because it was the longest book that I could think of, and I wanted something challenging to do. It goes off in various ways, and has a certain sense of being kind of bulky by dividing things into different kind of sections. You have one section that speaks about this family living here and another section about this one, and they're not always so connected, but it's a very good novel, and I enjoyed the read, although it took me a good long time. Okay, what would be another one that I can think of? Well, how about for my last one, number 5, we'll go with Kristin Lavransdatter. This is by Sigrid Undset. She's a Norwegian author and places this novel in the Middle Age period in Norway, back when it was still Catholic. What I remember about it was the insight given into the human heart and how stubbornness and fickleness and all this stuff can be so determinative at times in our lives. This book also took a pretty long time for me to get through, as it's pretty thick as well, but nonetheless it was a good one. So this is my list. Seems like I have been so busy these last years that I haven't gotten nearly as much reading done. But maybe I'll be inspired by some of the books that you share with me on your list and add or at least transfer a few more to my red pile. Take care and God bless.